Wokeness is dead, declared legions of conservatives when Sydney Sweeney hosted SNL, wearing a dress that didn't hide her cleavage. If you are very confused by this, you have every right to be, because haven't conservative men recently been going on the warpath against people with OnlyFans, talking about, like, trad wives and modesty, and now suddenly, apparently they think showing a bit of skin is anti-woke. For years, conservatives have been rallying against this very thing, but now apparently, yeah, cleavage is anti-woke. And I want to talk about this because it does reflect a more disturbing trend with conservative men who just aren't okay generally, but are increasingly feeling comfortable in their fascist safe space of Twitter to just, like, post the most unhinged things ever. And we've covered it a lot, like, on this channel, and I haven't actually been on Twitter over the last week, so I couldn't get, like, the full unhinged reaction, but I'm still going to cover what I've seen as well. And it also reminds me of that video I made about how conservative women are just sick of conservative men's misogyny, because, yes, conservative women, you should realise, the conservative ideology does not see you as equal, and actually boils you down to sex object, mother, and basically domestic servant, and they want to trap you through marriage. That's why they're going on the warpath also against no-fault divorce, because they don't want you to leave them, because increasingly women in America are trending more left-wing and men are trending more right-wing. Women aren't going to put up with your shit as much as they used to now, because they realise the ideology you're selling them, again, doesn't see them as equal. So I want to talk about this in regards to, like, Sydney Sweeney and just people even making her an anti-woke symbol. It does have some history, because she said herself she comes from a conservative family. She had, like, that MAGA party stuff, so some conservatives have liked her anyway. But it's just interesting because, you know, she's talked herself about how it was hard growing up with big boobs and stuff, and now she's being made the symbol of anti-wokeness because through her clothes she's not covering them up, right? I find all this stuff, like, so stupid. But anyway, follow me on social media, mainly on Instagram these days, and I'm also on Threads and Blue Sky, which have replaced my Twitter usage for the time being. So check that out, and also check out my travel Instagram, and check out my Patreon if you want to get access to the Discord server and also support my work. So like I said, there is some history to conservatives liking her beyond her being good looking. You know, the MAGA hat thing. So for those who need reminding, last August, Sweeney and her brother Trent shared some photos from their mother's 60th birthday party. The pictures featured several people in what appeared to be Blue Lives Matter garb and or Make America Great Again style hats that actually read Make 60 Great Again, which of course created a torrent of memes and discourse, which, you know, I don't really care too much about. But she did also say in an interview that her family are, like, actually conservative anyway.
My mom, she watched and she was supportive. She, of course, I was most nervous about her reaction because on her side of the family, I've some very conservative and small towns, small minds. They don't really get out and see the world, so I can't really hold that against them.
Yeah. Not that that really reflects at all on, like, her personal politics. From what I've seen, she hasn't really shared too much. I'd be shocked if she wasn't anything more than, like, a pretty typical Hollywood liberal. But just before we get on to using her as a symbol, I do want to, you know, talk about what she says about her boobs and stuff, because that's what she's being memed for right now as this anti-woke figure, but also because she's famous for roles that have her playing, like, a more sexualized character. Like Euphoria, she has, like, multiple sex scenes where she is pretty much fully nude, and I think there was another film she was in more recently which also saw her, you know, nude a lot as well. And she just gave an interview back in March 2023. Despite her many talents, Sydney has been keeping it real about the disheartening and misogynistic hurdles she's faced throughout her life and career. For example, she opened up about the double standards around nude scenes in the acting world. Quote, "When a guy has a sex scene or shows his body, he still wins awards and gets praise. But the moment a girl does it, it's completely different. There's a stigma against actresses who get naked on screen." Now, she's got even more candid about the scrutiny and shame she has faced because of her body and sexuality. Opening up to The Sun, she revealed that playing Cassie on Euphoria, a character who's the victim of revenge adult content and slut-shaming, triggered thoughts of her own upbringing, specifically how she was treated for developing breasts before her peers. I had boobs before other girls and I felt ostracized for it. She also looked back at the ways she was shamed in similar ways after playing Cassie, with her and her family being harassed after nude scenes and images from her time on the show were screenshotted and shared online. It got to the point where they were tagging my family. My cousins don't need that. It's completely disgusting. You have a character that goes through the scrutiny of being a sexualized person at school, and then an audience that does the same thing. I like that insight in terms of just revealing how dehumanizing it can be as a woman in Hollywood to play like these sexualized characters, because even though it's a character, it is like your body, isn't it? It's not like you can play it off as, you know, I am playing this role. It's not my words. I'm nothing like that. It is like physically your body. And just, you know, conservative men and men in general just don't act well with this stuff. So when I typed Sydney Sweeney into Reddit today to try and find articles about this, because, again, I'm not using Twitter, the results are just, you know, pretty terrible. Like the obsession and the sexualization of this person to like a really creepy degree. So I'm not surprising people have been doing that and harassing her own family members with it. And also having like breasts from a younger age is something I was thinking about recently as well, because I remember AOC made a comment where she talked about getting like catcalled when she was like 13, and conservatives were going like absolutely like mad about it, saying like, oh, you're making that up. No one would do that. Men would never do that. But if you have any female family members and close friends who have opened up about this stuff to you, you know that there's just a terrible culture of this stuff, especially sexualizing young people as well. Older men will literally go out of their way to catcall like young teenagers and even younger sometimes, right? It's absolutely gross. So yeah, I'm not surprised that she has felt pretty terrible about all this stuff. And so she's been dealing with this like her whole life. So that's why I find it even more gross now that conservatives aren't content with just like overly sexualizing every single thing because they got Kuma brains. It's that now they're making her a symbol of supposedly just anti-wokeness because what? She won't cover up? But again, I thought you wanted her to cover up. I thought you guys all like trad wives now. You didn't like women having cleavage. You guys are always going mad about bathtub streams on Twitch. You guys are always going mad about OnlyFans pages on Twitter. You hate all of that, but now it's anti-woke because an actress shows a bit of cleavage. I really don't understand this. Now, it's not just conservative men, it's also conservative women jumping on this to talk about this as well. So this was going viral. Amy Ham, wokeness is no match for Sydney Sweeney's undeniable beauty. Sweeney knows her sex appeal. On SNL, she bulged from her top, self-deprecatingly suggesting that her breasts are her backup career, and now virally donned a Hooters uniform for a rather unsophisticated sketch dedicated to her overflowing cups. Exactly how this led to a cultural cataclysm over beauty and wokeness can be summarised as follows. We've spent years being chastised for desiring or admiring beauty, because beauty is rare and exclusionary, and to exclude is to hate. Or so we've been scolded to accept by today's diversity, equity, and inclusion fanatics. We aren't supposed to admire Sweeney's beauty, but we've done it anyway. The times they are changing, aren't they? Recall the words of the unrepentant thought criminal Jordan Peterson on the plus-size model that graced the cover of Sports Illustrated 2 years back. Sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. To this day, the man is partly facing censure from his professional regulator over these words. We've all been pressured into pretending that we are bad people if we aren't attracted to every influencer wannabe who is unattractive by any reasonable standard of beauty. It's the adult's equivalent of handing out prize ribbons to every kid on sports day, even to the kid that face planted in a mud puddle and couldn't finish a potato sack race. Everyone wins and everyone must be regarded as beautiful, except of course the people who actually are. I don't know even what this article is talking about. People want to look at beauty on TV and in art generally, but we are being starved of it because attractiveness is deemed immoral. As such, beauty is now political. For this, we can thank the tyrannical, woke, and ironically minority vanguard that has for years coerced our culture into pretending that unbeautiful things are beautiful. It's not that Sweeney herself is political, she's not, nor does she need to be in order to make the point that so many apparently believe she has made, and while her breasts have caused a furore, I don't see this as a sudden death knell of wokeness. So when I talk about Sweeney causing a cultural cataclysm, I only mean it insofar as it's perceived to be one. It's not that Sweeney's conversation isn't welcome, it's just that we have been heading in this direction for months. The signs have been all around us, perhaps just not so large and buoyant as this one. Like, that just sums up the conservative mentality. Apparently, we don't see any beautiful women on our TV screens, Hollywood anymore. Is this like some sort of joke? It's still very clear that beauty standards enforced by, you know, mainstream media, enforced by any corporation trying to sell some beauty products, it's very clear there is still a very, very, like, narrow view of what beauty is. Now, we do have, like, the more sexualized versions nowadays, which have become more mainstream. We do have less of a focus on being, like, super skinny, like the early 2000s and stuff for women. Now it's more about having, like, a big bum, big boobs, but still being, like, relatively in good shape and stuff. But again, Sydney Sweeney fits very much into that. And some of the most popular actors and actresses in the world are still, like, very, very conventionally attractive people who have got some of that success through the attractiveness, because otherwise they probably wouldn't be elevated as much as they have. But like I said, we're getting, like, I'm going to call it OnlyFans brain, in that conservatives are not happy. They were literally debating if Margot Robbie was mid. Like, these people are absolutely insane because they don't want even, like, beautiful, attractive people. They want just sexualized people. That's all they view women for, sexual gratification. And if you want further proof of this, I'm going to take this into video games. I just looked at Geeks and Gamers recently, their thumbnails. Sydney Sweeney is in the last 3. These videos all have nothing to do with Sydney Sweeney. Don't know what that's about, but anyway, you have a lot of people now saying that games companies are now purposefully, like this Sweet Baby Inc. consulting company that I could maybe do a video on, they're purposefully making the actual models for video game characters ugly by, like, not sexualizing them. So here's the one from the upcoming Star Wars game. They're talking about Lara Croft not being attractive in the Tomb Raider reboot compared to the original one, because the original one is super objectified, while the newer one is just, like, amazing looking, but not objectified as much. Like, that's the standard here. Who is going to tell me that Lara Croft in the reboot isn't insanely good looking? It's just that she doesn't have the tightest top ever. These people go absolutely insane because, again, it's the OnlyFans brain. It's the OnlyFans brain. It's nothing about, like, actual conventional beauty. They just want women to be sexually objectified. Obviously, I talked about it recently with Stellar Blade. I've seen other videos about this where they are all saying it's now anti-woke because the main character is objectified as well, so apparently that's anti-woke, despite the fact they know nothing about the actual political themes or any themes of the game. And to show you how insane these people are, like insane, like nothing will be good for them, here is a post about the new Lara Croft. Like, there is a new Lara Croft, which is kind of blending both of them together and giving her a more classic look. Pretty attractive person right here. But look at some of the comments on this subreddit. One says it looks too good so it can't be real. But others saying she has a man jaw, her breasts too small, and she has no hips, it doesn't look good at all. Her face is fugly and androgynous, and her breasts got the same treatment with Tifa from Final Fantasy Remake. I didn't expect anything better from those woke lunatics. They can go fuck off. They don't even get a cent from me. Anything woke needs to die because it turns to shit. Too manly. Why are her tits so small? Bit of a man jaw, but way better than expected. And then you had, like, this, like, AI page which sexualizes video game characters they don't find attractive enough. You have that new Fable character. You have, I don't know what this character's from, like a fighting game. And Mary Jane from the latest Spider-Man, which has driven them absolutely crazy because she's not super objectified. But look at this comparison. Like, you're giving the face more makeup and changing the proportions, but then she also has to have, like, cleavage out as well. And again, it's nothing about, like, beauty standards. Beauty standards have, of course, changed significantly, but if you're arguing Margot Robbie is mid, it's pretty clear it's not even about beauty, because most people can agree that is a very conventionally attractive woman, but just because she's not sexualized in every single performance, apparently now she's mid. And, you know, this Lara Croft stuff is absolutely crazy, calling her, like, androgynous, saying she's so ugly, and it's the wokeness making, you know, these game developers make characters, like, less sexualized, even though they've sexualized her more in this new design than it used to be. Apparently it's not good enough. Just to, like, get back to the point made in the article, how we accept, like, everyone now is beautiful. Like, that Jordan Peterson tweet is unhinged because that model is, like, objectively attractive. Just because she's larger, she's not seen as like as conventionally attractive, but most people could agree that like she is an attractive person. It's only if you have this like super narrow view and misogynistic sexualized view of what female beauty standards are, but you know, you think this person is ugly. But it does play into their mindset. Like they think we're saying everyone has to be good looking. And I don't think anyone is really saying that. I think the conversation mostly, and something I would agree with, is like, don't talk about people's looks and objectify them for no reason. Don't be horrible to people if you think they're not as good looking. Don't be horrible to people if they might be like overweight and stuff like that, because most people in the world don't look like Lara Croft reboot, don't look like Tifa, don't look like the character of Stellar Blade, don't look like Margot Robbie, and don't look like Sydney Sweeney. Most people in your life and in the world look just, you know, in my opinion, most people, and I'm talking about myself here as well, just average, right? I don't think most people stick out either way. You just all kind of blend into one. And isn't it nice then to get some representation of just what your average person looks like? And they went crazy about The Last of Us 2 as well, remember that? Because Abby and Ellie, the two like main female playable characters, they don't have conventional like sexualized bodies you often find in video games. One is very skinny and one is like very jacked, which is not something you typically see in like realistic video games. It sent them absolutely crazy because they're like, oh, you're making women ugly. And even though I wouldn't say either of these characters are actually ugly anyway, it's just insane. Again, OnlyFans brain. Why does that matter? If both of them were objectively like very ugly people, why does it matter? Why? Isn't what's important about the character like their actual character, their dialogue, their like narrative arc? Isn't that more important? When we play video games and the men look a certain way, no one cares. Like no one cares when you play a video game and they don't all look like Chris Redfield from Resident Evil 5. No one cares if the men look a certain way. If the men look ugly, if the men look disheveled, if the men aren't especially muscly or whatever, no one cares. But when it's a woman who kind of falls outside the typical objectified, sexualized female characters you see in video games or media, people absolutely like lose their mind. And this just reveals, you know, the inherent sexism in most conservative men is that they don't see women as equal. Women serve a purpose to them, and that is sex object, mother of their children, and maybe, you know, maid for them through marriage, right? They don't see them as equal people. So if you're taking away like showing them very sexualized objects all the time, they think it's wokeness taking over and you're purposely trying to make women ugly for what, the woke agenda. Please someone explain to me how depicting more average and normal people across genders in video games and media is actually against wokeness. But at the same time, anyone wants to express themselves in a certain way through their clothing or whatever, I'm totally good with that as well. Let's just not take that as some sort of symbolic thing against wokeness, especially for someone who said they're a bit uncomfortable with how much in their career and personal life they've been completely objectified by their boobs, right? And then you're writing articles about how this is a symbol of like anti-wokeness and she's standing up to the woke mob, all the conservatives absolutely loving it, and it's just super dehumanizing. You don't care about this person, you don't care about what she thinks, you don't care about her acting talent, all you care about is that she showed a bit of cleavage on SNL and now you absolutely love her and think she's making some sort of statement. But that is it for the video, just a quick one today. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.